Hello, algebra friends. Today we are going to learn a new form of a line. It's called point-slope form, and we've talked about it a little bit in class, but really all we've done with it in the past is just look at it and change it into slope-intercept form, and we can still do that when we're graphing, but what we're going to find is that point-slope form is very useful for being able to put together equations for lines when we don't have the same information that we had before. Okay, so up until this point, we've really been focusing on slope-intercept form. Okay, and today we're going to learn point-slope form. So just kind of want to point a couple things out. First of all, slope-intercept form means that from the equation, we can find the slope. And we can also find the y-intercept, okay? And that's what's y equals mx plus b. We have the y-intercept, and it's just a number there. We know that number goes on the y-axis, and then we have the slope. So slope-intercept. Now, point-slope form, same thing. We have a point. We have a slope. The thing that's different, though, is the point is not on the axis. It's a point just anywhere on the graph, okay? So what are our learning targets today? I can identify the slope and a point from the equation. So we're going to learn how to read the equation in point-slope form. And then we're also going to learn how to graph those. Okay, so this is point-slope form. And it looks a little scary at first because you see y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So first of all, just like always, m is the slope. So when you look at this equation, if you look on the right side in front of the parentheses, that number is going to be the slope. All right. And then the next thing to know is this x1, y1. Now this is where it gets a little confusing. So we have a number here, and there's going to be a number here. And together, those two numbers will make an ordered pair that's the point. Now I want to point out a couple things. First of all, they're backwards because the x value is going to be over here in the parentheses. The y value is going to be over here. And then the other thing to note is that the form, as it is as basic as can be, can have subtraction. And that gets a little tricky because when you have subtraction, all you do is look at the number after the subtraction sign, and it's going to be a positive number, not a negative number, which is completely different from slope-intercept form. Okay? So, but I do want to say, in terms of graphing, point-slope form is a lot like slope-intercept form. Okay? So both forms tell you one point on the line. Okay, in slope-intercept form, the starting point is always on the y-axis. So if you remember, when we graphed, right, we would always start here, right, and then this would be our slope here. Okay, so in this case, since it's on the axis, we use this as exactly -4. We start, 1, 2, 3, 4, we start by plotting our point, and then we use the slope as rise over run, up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3, to get more points on the graph. We're going to do that same thing. The only difference is going to be the starting point is going to change. Okay, so slope-intercept form, the starting point is always on the axis, but in point-slope form, the starting point could be anywhere on the graph, okay? Our starting point could be up here, over here, down here, and we have to learn how to read the equation to know where that is, okay? You have to know how to read the equation to figure out where the starting point is, and I'm going to tell you, watch out for those positive and negative signs, okay? So we have to maybe add a few more comments on your notes as you go along so you understand how to read that equation, okay? Now, so that's one point. Now, the other thing that both equations tell you is the slope, okay? And in slope-intercept form, we always look directly in front of the x to get the slope, and it's usually a fraction. In point-slope form, we do something similar. We look directly in front of the parentheses that have the x in them. So this number is the slope, okay? So let's read the point-slope equation. So here we have y minus 3 equals 1/2 times x minus 4. So I'm just going to kind of write on this. We have y minus y1 is equal to m, and then x minus x1. Now, again, in the form we have subtraction. So y minus, and then the number after the minus sign is the y value. So 3 is our y value. And then x minus the number after the subtraction sign is the x value. So this is 4, 3. Okay, so when we have y minus 3 equals 1/2 x minus 4, this line will go through the point 4, 3. And of course, the slope is the number in front. That's easy. Okay, let's try another one. We have minus again, so y minus 1 equals negative 2/3 times x minus 3. So y minus the number directly after the minus sign, I'm going to cover it up. That's our y coordinate. Go over here, x minus the number after the minus sign is 3. That's our x coordinate. Okay, so notice they're flip-flopped. Okay, the x's, I have to put that number first. The y's, I put that number second. Look directly in front of the parentheses. My slope of this line is going to be negative 2/3. Okay, let's take a look. Ooh, this one has a plus. Okay, remember, the format is subtraction. So remember, this is the way it always needs to look. If you have subtraction, all you do is take the number after the subtraction sign. If you have addition, though, we have to do a little trick, okay? So remember, y plus 1 is the same thing as y minus negative 1. And then that's 2 times x minus 5. So this is where it gets a little tricky. If we look after the minus sign, y minus what? Negative 1 is going to be our y value. Remember, the y value comes second. And then x minus 5 directly after the minus sign, so positive 5. And then, of course, the slope is directly in front. So that could be 2. And remember, we want to turn that into a fraction so that we have a rise and we have a run. So when we go to graph it, we know what we're doing. Okay. Again, we have a minus, we have a plus. I'm going to just rewrite this as minus and negative so it's easier to read. Okay, so y minus 4 equals negative 3. And so x plus 1, I want to have it in subtraction format. X minus negative 1. All right, so my first number is my y value. So y minus, after the minus sign is the 4. That's y. Second number in the ordered pair. X minus the number after the negative 1, or after the minus sign is the negative 1. So negative 1 goes here. All right, and the slope is the number in front of the parentheses, which is negative 3. Or might be easier if you say negative 3/1. Okay. Now, we have two pluses. All right. If you need to see this as subtraction, let's say y minus negative 2 equals 1/4 times x minus negative 8. All right. So the y value is after the y, so y minus negative 2 is our y. After the subtraction sign here is a negative 8. All right, so this line will go through negative 8, negative 2. Now notice in the equation, it's positive 8, positive 2. So it's always backwards in the point from what it looks like in the equation. And the slope is 1/4. Easy peasy, okay? Most difficult part is getting the signs right on here. So let's just signs. Okay, need to put some kind of note there so you notice that these are different. All right, video is at a little less than 9 minutes. Let's see if I can keep going. Try to do it all in one. So now we're going to graph them. Okay, so all we have to do is know how to read the equation to know what it is. We find the point. So the first thing we're going to do is find the point, and second thing we're going to use the slope to make knots. All right, so just like we did on the last page, we're going to find the point. So y minus the number after the subtraction sign, that's our y value. And then the number after subtraction sign is a 1. So this is our starting point. We're going to graph this point. Graph. So 1, 6 is going to go here. And then now we get the slope. The slope here is going to be negative 1/2. All right. So from our point here, this is now where we start. We have to go down 1, right 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm out of places. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, let's go ahead. All of our lines, or all of our dots should line up here pretty good. And remember, we have to draw a nice big graph that goes all the way across. So You have to make sure you put dots all the way this way and all the way this way. Okay, let me just show you really quickly, okay? And this is an example of why you may want to use, why it's good to understand point slope curve in addition to point slope intercept. So if I say y minus 6 equals negative 1/2 times x minus 1, all right, I'm going to distribute that negative 1/2, so y minus 6 equals negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times negative 1 is plus 1/2. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So what I just did here was I just took the time to rewrite this into slope-intercept form. And what I don't like about this is I understand the slope, but do you see I got a y-intercept that is a number I don't want to have to deal with, okay? But let's take a look and see if that looks like I'm pretty close to right. So the y-intercept is going to be 6.5, so 5, 6. Looks like I got pretty close to graphing it. But what I would really hate to do would be have to guess where to put this number. So in this particular situation, using the point slope graph or the point slope equation helped me be much more precise because I was able to put a dot exactly where I wanted it, right on a grid square, instead of having to guess at a halfway point. And then my slope was easy. And notice in this format, it's still the exact same equation. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Point slope form. Remember, we want to find our point first. All right? So y plus 2, it might help if we rewrite this in subtraction form. Now, I'm not changing the values in the equation. All I'm doing is rewriting it in a format that it's easier for me to understand. Okay, so I'm looking for the point. So y minus after the subtraction sign is my y value. So in my ordered pair, that's the y value. All right. In my ordered pair, x minus negative 8. All right, so that's where I'm going to start. So negative 8, negative 2. So negative 8, negative 2 right here. All right, slope is the number directly in front, so 5 over 2. All right, so starting here, I can go up 5, so rise and run. I'm going to go up 5, 2, over 2. Up 5, 2, over 2. All right, and now this graph ends up being in kind of a weird location. All right, and so, let's see. Based on what my graph looks like, okay, it's going to eventually hit the y-axis, so there's going to be a y-intercept up here somewhere, but it would be kind of difficult for me to graph that with this grid, so much more helpful and useful to be able to graph it in this format. And that is it for today. On your practice, you're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be identifying points and slopes and then doing some graphing. On some of the graphs, I am going to have you rewrite them in slope-intercept form to double check, just like we did here, that both forms of the equation are going to give you the same line, and that should give you a little confidence. And other than that, hopefully that all makes sense, and we will see you back in class, my friends.